Our next in-person mastermind is coming up this fall, and we're heading to Vegas. We're kicking off this mastermind with an in-person tour at Zappos downtown Las Vegas campus, where you'll learn their strategies behind company culture, core values, employee engagement, and customer service. Looking outside the legal industry for business concepts and strategies allows you to gain fresh perspectives and innovative solutions that can be applied to improve and differentiate your firm's operations. Following the tour are the mastermind hot seats. Every attendee has the opportunity to dive deep into their business obstacles with their mastermind group and coach. We believe that nothing beats working on your firm in person, so join us in Las Vegas on November 7th and 8th. This is your chance to break through barriers, spark new ideas, and accelerate your law firm's success. Limited spots are available. Visit maxlawevents.com for full event details and to grab your ticket today.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrux. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. What's up, Jimbo?
Oh, how you doing, Tyson? It sounds like you're at an arbitration or some such thing.
Well, just got done. I've changed, so I'm not in my suit anymore. But arbitration went well. We got done pretty quickly, so we got a lot of the prep work done early. So yeah, it went well. Now we just got to wait. It's a high-low, so we can't really lose because the lowest we would get is 250. So we're in pretty good shape. So I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, how are you doing?
Nice. I'm great. I'm having a good day. I just got done with my immigration show, so it's recording day for me. And what else? Just living the dream, having fun. Went to the gym this morning. Everything's good.
Nice. Well, let's get to our guest today. The guest is Martin Parsons. Martin owns the Legal Advocacy Headquarters, a law practice in Carterville, Illinois, that specializes in advising small businesses and nonprofits and assists with trademark registration. Martin views his relationship with his clients as a partnership in their business or nonprofit success. We can get into more of the details of this bio in a little bit, Martin, but welcome to the show. We're happy to have you.
Hey, thanks, Tyson. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Martin, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you like to do, how you like to spend your time, how you make money, all that good stuff.
All right. So I spent 24 years in the military and did some time at one of the places that Tyson was at, Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, a couple of different summer camps. So I retired, and then I went to law school. So I'm a late-in-life lawyer, and initially worked at the law school doing VA disability claims appeals, and then through some kind of law and COVID walks, my wife and I decided to do our own thing. So I opened my practice, and then decided to keep it very narrowly focused with small business. And the nonprofits initially was just sort of a thing like, oh, we'll do those too. But recently, that part of my practice has grown more than the small business side, because here in deep southern Illinois, there aren't many attorneys who do it or do it in a way that nonprofits can afford it. So that part's been really growing. We have a couple of unique subscription models that helps with that. So, and then in my spare time, I love to read. I'm a huge reader. I'm always reading something. I just finished a book that we'll talk about later, and just spending time with the family. Love to travel. So. All
right. But Jim, before you ask a question, I got to ask about when you were at Fort McCoy. Did they have McCoys there whenever you were there?
Oh yeah. I mean, McCoy's has been there since like the 90s. I mean, I was there back in late 80s, and it was there. It was there then. It may have looked a little different then, like many of the barracks did at that time too. But
it's pretty fancy now. They got screens all over the place. So okay, cool. I was just curious. All right, Jim, go ahead.
Well, let me thank you for your service, first of all, and anybody that was in those places where Tyson was. That I know that was hard work where you were. So thank you for that. Talk to us about being a late-in-life lawyer, as you called it. What was that like going to law school, and how did you interact with I always thought that the 2 years I took off between undergrad and law school helped me. How about you? What was it like going through law school and observing these young people who thought that it was just so hard to be in law school?
There was a lot of that, for sure. It really worked out. I was very fortunate. I was the oldest person in the class, oldest guy in my class. There was one other guy who was 1 month younger, who also happened to serve in the Army National Guard. But my classmates really just embraced me. It was really pretty fantastic. I started law school coming out of a divorce, sort of a change of there was just a lot of life stuff happening. So I came to law school out of a divorce, kind of just wanted to keep my head down, do my job, go to school, do this thing and knock it out and go back to my apartment. And several of these my classmates wouldn't let me. They just, they included me in a lot of things and very supportive and helpful. And then I was able to help them bring a little perspective at times to the challenges that they, as you said, they kind of perceived that they were running into. But it was an uphill battle at first. I hadn't studied, hadn't been to school in years, so figuring that out was hard. I mean, my first year of law school, my grades were not stellar. They improved as I went along as I figured it out. But it was a great experience. I love to learn and read, so I was right in my element.
All right, so Martin, I want to ask you, maybe get into the weeds a little bit, but I'm curious. So in your pre-interview questionnaire, you said something, it's really interesting to me. So give me a second because I'm going to read through both of these. The one aspect of your firm that is most successful, you said, client service and satisfaction. We work hard to be accessible and easy to talk with. We designed our office space to be client-focused and comfortable. Many of our clients who have never worked with a lawyer remarked that it was not the experience they expected. Okay, so that's not the full thing you said. There's a little bit more, but then
sure.
The aspect that that needs the most work, you said marketing and client acquisition. To me, that seems those two. If the client satisfaction is there and you focus on that, but then it's not leading to more clients, it just seems a little off. So I wanted you to talk about that because you can probably get a little more clarity. But I do find that interesting because sometimes what we'll do is we'll provide this amazing service and the clients are happy, and then we're not getting referrals from them. So talk about that a little bit.
I think I filled that survey out several months ago, and it has, interestingly, in the last couple of months, I've been getting more and more referrals. And partly because it's taken longer to get started. I've been at this a couple of years because we're so narrow. Small business and nonprofits. We do trademarks, and I'll do an occasional will or power of attorney for some friends. But because of that narrow focus, it's taken a little longer for that word to get out and the referrals to come. But for some reason, in the last few months, it really has started to take off because you're right. You would think that from that fantastic customer service and the things that they're getting and feeling when they come see us, there would be more referrals. And we are starting to see that slowly, I guess. Maybe I'm impatient.
How did you decide your practice area, and what led you to decide to do trademarks?
I had the small business and nonprofits. I worked at a small firm briefly out of law school, about a year out of law school, before I went to do the Veterans Clinic, and they did small business and nonprofits. So I had been exposed to it in my former life in the Guard. I had owned a couple of different small businesses, so I had an interest in it. My dad had small businesses, so sort of in the family. And then when we decided to do our own thing, we had ruled out things like family law, criminal law, didn't really want to go deep into trusts and estates, and doing just kind of a what do I like to do? Who are the people I want to hang out with and spend my time with and serve? And small business owners and nonprofit founders were the people that we really came to. And then a friend of mine who was here locally who did IP work and was going to be leaving the area is actually who suggested trademarks to me. So I learned about it from her, and it goes very nicely with the small business advice that we're providing, and even nonprofits.
So, Martin, are there any things that your parents did that you picked up from that either you really don't like that they did, or that you really did that you do like that you've picked up and added to your firm? Because my parents are both small business owners, and they do some things that I think are fantastic, but sometimes it just drives me crazy, some of the things they do. From a business standpoint, it's not a good idea. So I wonder if you learned anything from your parents like that.
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, one of the big ones is the value of relationships, that people do business with people. Was one of their recurring themes. And even now when I call home to tell them how things are going, I get the same 2 or 3 mantras. But that's one of them I learned from them, is the importance of relationships and taking care of people and customer service. Probably the things that I didn't like that they did was, my dad was sort of a serial entrepreneur, as he just bounced from one thing to another. Like, there was hardly any. He had one very successful endeavor, which was a restaurant in a small town that was very successful, and he sold it and got out, and then went to another business that he had for a year or so, and then another one, and another one. So he bounced through quite a few. So one of the things that I've learned and try to share with my clients is, and I've seen from my own practice, it's not a quick thing. It takes time, and you've got to stick with it, and you can't just bounce from one to the other. Or some things that I saw in how they worked, and some due diligence that my dad did he trusted a lot of people, probably common. And as we know, if it's not in writing, then things happen, or in a good writing. So those are things that from my own practice, and that I try to share with my clients, is the importance of documenting things, regardless of how good a friend they might be or your family member. We've got to put it in writing, because otherwise, how do we know what's really going to happen or supposed to happen?
Let's talk about your firm setup. So what kind of a structure is it? Is it just you? Do you have helpers, or what's the team like?
Yeah, I'm the only lawyer at the moment, and then I have an assistant who is my wife, who she used to be the admissions director for the law school. That's kind of how we met, after I was out of law school and working there. So we both left the law school at the same time. So she's my assistant, and her customer service is just fantastic. She thinks of all those things that I don't: follow-up cards and emails and notes and tracking birth.
Are you tired of the marketing guessing game? Does your website feel more like a digital billboard than a client magnet? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. And it's time to stop the uncertainty and start getting real results. Let's talk about your marketing spend. Are you just shelling out money every month and crossing your fingers? Do you ever wonder what impact your marketing is really having on your revenue? Well, it's time to take the guesswork out of the equation with Rise Up Media. We've been working with them for over a year, and the feedback from our fellow members has been fantastic. Rise Up Media is here to take your marketing to the next level. They'll even perform a full audit of your online presence, giving you the good, the bad, and even let you in on what your competition is up to that you're missing out on. And the best part, there's no obligation, no catch, no pressure. If you decide to work with them, their contracts are month to month. That's right. No long-term commitments tying you down. So what are you waiting for? To learn more about how Rise Up Media can transform your firms, visit riseupmedia.com/MaxLaw, and Rise is spelled with a Z. riseupmedia.com/MaxLaw.
Birthdays and other events, and watching the news for things that happen to their kids, to send little messages to let them know that we saw that and congratulate them, and welcoming them when they come in. All those things she's just fantastic at. So that's part of our really great customer service, I believe. And in addition to just kind of how our office is set up, when you first come in, we just have it's almost like a living room with very comfortable chairs and a coffee table. You don't walk right into a reception window or even a desk, and it feels a little different. You come back to the conference room, and it's right next to our kitchen, and it's kind of like coming to our house almost, was sort of the vibe we were going for, which I learned from a mentor of mine when I first started practicing. She did most of her interviews with clients in the kitchen, just meeting in the kitchen, sometimes over a beer or other cocktail. She met a lot of clients, and she didn't often wear shoes. So we haven't gone that far.
I am intrigued by this. When you described it, I'm picturing you all, having conversations with your business clients in a kitchen almost, but it's a really interesting approach. I really like that. I like the approach that you take when it comes to clients and everything too. That's pretty cool. Let's talk a little bit about the book. Why the book? Why did you want to write the book? What was that about?
So when I left the law school in this area, it's not a big area. If you're familiar, you guys are in St. Louis, not that far away, in Carbondale, SIU. In this area, in our 2 or 3 county area, because of all the work I did for veterans, I was the veterans guy. So anytime a judge or a lawyer or anyone had a question related to veterans, call Martin. So they'd call the law school or they'd text me. And so when we decided to go out and do our own thing and not focus on veterans work specifically, even though our logo and our brand has a very, I think, military look to it, and that was intentional, I needed to do something to let people know I knew other things or that I was doing something else. And since I love to read, I stumbled on somewhere this gentleman named Mike Capuzzi who talked about the short, helpful book, The Shook, and having this small book that you can use like a calling card or like your business card. I thought, well, that sounds great. I've always kind of wanted to write a book. There's an incentive. So I did, and wrote the book, and then have used it. It worked out. I had a deadline to do it. I work with a nonprofit called Dog Tag Bakery that helps disabled veterans learn to be entrepreneurs, and they had asked me to give a session on legal business issues. So that was my deadline to finish the book so that they could have it, have a tool to use. And then when I go out and do presentations or meet clients, I've got the book. So it's just a great thing. It shows expertise in many clients' minds that I might know something because I wrote a book.
Talk to us, Martin, about the process of writing the book and what you've done to promote the book.
The process was just kind of grinding it out. I'm a big David Letterman fan from old days. He used to have the top 10 list, so that's where the title came from, top 10 legal mistakes that entrepreneurs make. So once I decided it was going to be a top 10, I picked 10 chapters and 10 mistakes, and then dug into thinking about all the things that entrepreneurs make in that. And then, fortunately, my wife was very. It takes a lot of time, nights, weekends, and we were on a kind of a short deadline. So she was very gracious, gave me the time and space to do it. And it was right before the big rise in ChatGPT that might have been a little bit of helpful in structure, just kind of ground it out. And then I learned to, how do I publish it? I just studied. I love to learn things. So I instead of sending it off to somebody, I figured out how to publish it and how to get copies, and ultimately landed on Amazon because that's really the most reasonable way to get copies made and printed. I don't really sell it there much. It's mostly just so that I can order copies as I need them to give to people. And then I use it. I speak to chambers. I'm on several different chambers of commerce, and anytime I go to speak, I'm becoming the business law expert. So end of last year, I made the rounds at 4 different chambers of commerce to talk about new laws in 2024, and I took books with me, and I presented at some other rather specific conferences, and I take books there to typically give away in exchange for an email is what I try to get in exchange for that, because that email list is important, as we know.
So let's talk a little bit about some tips you might give to people. What are a few tips you might give to people that want to write their own book and publish it themselves? Because we've had a couple people talk about it in the past, but no one recently. So I am curious if things have changed a little bit. Yeah,
they're definitely changing. Because ChatGPT definitely, or any of the other GPTs, definitely make it easier to get going, to have an outline done, to get kick-started, for sure. But it's definitely something that anybody can do. You can do it. It's not hard. It takes time, and that's the challenge that most of us have. The period when I wrote it, fortunately, I had the time. If I was setting about, because I've thought about writing another one for nonprofits that I just haven't found the time for because now I'm working and have more to do. But there are businesses that'll help you write it. There's some that are specifically targeted at lawyers where they'll interview. They'll kind of like this. They'll do an interview. They have a structure. They'll ask questions, get your tone of voice, and they'll take that information and ghostwrite your book and do everything all the way to publishing, creating the covers, getting you copies along the way. But it's definitely doable, and there's different ways to do it. I've moved away from, I still have hard copies, but I moved away from that to digital copies, and there's different ways to be able to give those away as PDFs or Adobe or Mobi files that people could read on a Kindle. That makes it really inexpensive, that you really don't have to have a big investment in buying a box of 100 books to give away. You could have a QR code on your business card that someone scans, takes them to a landing page, they put in their email, and they get an electronic copy of your book.
So what does the future hold? What are your big plans for world domination?
I want to add more nonprofit clients. That part of my practice is the part that I just really enjoy, being able to help them. I love just helping people who want to help other people. It's fantastic. And as I mentioned before, I've got a couple of subscription options that make it pretty affordable and accessible for them. For $95, they can call me, $95 a month. They can call me, email me, and ask questions to stay out of trouble. Got a couple other levels that give them some different levels of work, which for nonprofits is good because they can budget for it better than just the expenses that come up when they don't. And the nonprofit founders and entrepreneurs mentally are a little different. Entrepreneurs, we want to do it all, at least initially. We want to learn how to market and we want to do everything. We don't want to give any of it up or much of it up. But nonprofit founders seem to be more ready to just say, you know what, I don't know, I don't want to know, I just want to help people, you take it. So they've been more likely to get involved with the subscription and do those things. So the nonprofit side, I really want to keep growing. And then I really enjoy the trademark side. It's creative, and the people who are doing those things are creative, coming up with fun names. So I really like that practice area too, that I'm starting to try to get more work in. And I don't know if I'm not ready. I haven't thought, not a lot of thoughts about growing the practice yet, even still getting my own stuff figured out.
I think that's a natural thing. I do want to go back for a second because you work with your spouse. I work with my spouse. Jim works with his spouse, and I'm seeing it more and more. And do you have any advice you'd give to lawyers that are considering that as an option?
You've got to have a good relationship and being able to communicate open and honestly. I mean, like any relationship, communication is key. But we've definitely worked through some of our things. Before we worked together, when I was at the law school, I didn't have a secretary or an assistant. I had law students, and you can't really count on them for much. Not completely, or at least not, anyway, I didn't really have people to delegate to or that often, or answer to, because I was sort of on an island of sorts. She answered to the dean, but didn't have to work for somebody either. So we've had to navigate working together and working for each other, but we've been able to do it because we can communicate with it. And if I get a little tense or short, we're able to talk about it. So I think communication is the most important part, and deciding what everybody's job duties are. I sometimes have to remind her that she's not an attorney and that legal advice, because she likes to give advice. She is she's a mother and a wife, and she likes to give advice, but that's not her arena. So we've just worked on defining those boundaries, and I think that's the other things that are important. Each of us knowing our lanes, and I have to work on giving stuff up, not responding to every email that comes in, because that's what I'm used to doing. So giving those things up to her and let her do her job so that I can do my job better and more efficiently. Do you have any advice, Tyson and Jim, for you've been doing it longer than I have with your spouses?
Yeah, I'd say, your advice was sound. It really was. But I think the number one thing is that this is your job. This is my job. Like just like anyone else, but it's got to be even more clear with your spouse, because there's more of the tendency that you want to kind of step on each other's toes. And if everybody in the firm doesn't know who's doing what, then you could have some real issues. And so we stumbled through that for probably the first 6 months. But I think once we figured that out, it was like, okay, we're cooking. But you got to figure that part out, because otherwise it could cause some issues at home. And so that'd be like my number one bit of advice. Determine the roles, write out the roles, make sure that you're both very clear on it. And then a lot of those issues won't become issues. Jim, what do you say?
For me, I agree with all that. The big thing for me, though, is leaving work at work and not bringing stuff home. I think that's the big headache, is when you're trying to fall asleep and one of the other of you says, hey, I forgot to tell you, this thing happened at 1:30 today at the office. I meant to tell you earlier, but... Yes. And then you're like, so it can be disruptive. Yeah.
Yeah, I second that, because I'm not the one. I don't get my work email on my phone. I get it on. I don't have notifications on my phone for my work email, but she does. And so instead of me, I'm not typically the one bringing the work home. Well, that's exactly what will happen, Jim. You're going to sleep and just like, hey, Joe emailed in and they said yes to the contract. So yeah, leaving that separation is important. We're working on that. We're not as close on that one.
We're not close at all on that one, Jimbo. It's like you were speaking to my wife or something. I try to enforce like a no business in bed rule, but it has never been enforced. So that's how it happens sometimes. But Martin, we are going to start to wrap things up. Before we do, how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you?
My email or website's legaladvocacyheadquarters.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Martin Parsons or Martin D. Parsons on LinkedIn. My website has contact information and a contact form. Probably just the best spot, legaladvocacyheadquarters.com.
Nice. All right, we're going to wrap things up. Before I do, I want to remind everyone to join us in the big Facebook group. Just search Maximum Lawyer on Facebook and you'll find us there. And then we would love to have you in the guild, maxlawguild.com. We have a lot of great members there that just share a lot of their tools that they use, a lot of the knowledge that they have. It's just a great group of people, so we'd love to have you there. And while you're listening to the rest of this episode, if you could help us spread the love by giving us a 5-star review, it would mean a lot to us, and we'd really appreciate it. Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
Well, I was on my walk today listening to Gary Vee, and I was reminded of the fact that he has this 260 slide deck that he gives away for free. It's very, very good. It's on how to repurpose content. And, we have a lot of people who struggle to create content, struggle to know how to repurpose content. He talks about the 7 big platforms, and it's like a step by step by step that, as he says proudly, but it's also true that if other people could charge $2,000 or something for this, it's free. So if you just Google Gary Vaynerchuk social media slide deck, you'll come right to it, and it's terrific.
I love it. Free's good. I like it. All right, Martin, we always ask our guests to give a tip or hack of the week. Could be a book, podcast, quote, tool, whatever, you name it. What you got for us?
Yeah, I'm a book reader, so I've got a book. It's called Make Time. It's, the central focus is about choosing a focus point. Got a lot of similarities with The One Thing by Gary Keller in that initial thoughts, but it's written by a couple of Silicon Valley guys, like self-proclaimed time geeks. So after the initial part of it, it's got these 87 little tips and hacks about how to do that, how to pick that one thing, how to focus on that one thing. I hadn't heard of the book until recently, watching a couple of YouTube videos that I randomly stumbled on it. So some of the tips have been very helpful.
I like it. Very good. I've never heard of that before, so I'm going to check it out. Not that I need another freaking book to read, but I added another one yesterday to my list. I bought it. I actually bought another one yesterday. So anyways, I got it. I got the recommendation from our buddy David Haskins. So my tip of the week is actually not the book. My tip of the week is bring in outside people to help train your people. And so one of the things that we've been focusing on is getting referrals, and we're not the pros when it comes to referrals. And so what we've done is we've actually scheduled different people that we know are pretty good at referrals. David Haskins, he came in and he didn't necessarily speak on referrals. It was pretty much a marketing workshop. It was pretty cool. And it was about social media, and it was loosely related to referrals, and a lot of it had to do with social media marketing and how the team could do it. It was a really fun exercise. He did an amazing job. David Haskins, he's a really smart person when it comes to marketing. He's got a lot of cool ideas, and so it was fun. We did that yesterday, and so don't hesitate to reach out to outside people. We've done it where we've actually paid people to do it too, where it's worth the money. It is absolutely worth the money if you pay people to do it. We hired a nutritionist once where she came in. We paid her to give us a remote training on what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, like some practical tips on eating. So I highly encourage people to reach out to people outside of the legal industry, outside the legal space, to get training for your firm, because they know things we don't know. So I think it's important. But Martin, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. I love the fact that I know you did this kind of later in life, but I love that that's something you wanted to do. You went out and you achieved it. And I think that's really cool. That's really admirable. So thanks for coming on. And thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks, Jim and Tyson. Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your host and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.
Hey, before you go, stick with me for just a minute, because I have a discount that is exclusive to Maximum Lawyer Podcast listeners only, and I want to make sure you know about it. As you all know, it is absolutely crucial to stay on top of calls with clients, with court staff, with judges. I even had a client the other day say that the provider was calling him saying that they had been trying to get a hold of us and they had left us a couple voicemails. Well, that's impossible at our firm because we don't have voicemails. It's extremely important to us that a live person answer the phone. And so we got rid of our voicemails a long time ago. That's where Lex Reception comes in. They are a 24/7 virtual receptionist service that specializes in legal clients. That's you, attorneys, law firm owners. They answer your calls, they screen callers, they schedule appointments, and get this, they can even handle new client intakes. On top of that, you can customize the service to fit your firm's needs. Because let's face it, estate planning is different from personal injury. Personal injury is different from criminal defense. We all have different types of practice areas, so you can customize these scripts that fit your firm, and you can even set the hours that you want them to answer the phone. So, for Maximum Lawyer listeners only that are new to Lex, you'll receive $250 off your first month. So, as I always talk about, the best part about an idea is taking action. All you have to do is quote Maximum Lawyer when you reach out to Lex. Go to lexreception.com. When you're talking to them, say Maximum Lawyer to get your $250 discount.